just going to do a very quick sort of one-line introduction of everybody, and then we're going to go into all of their stories. So you will learn more about them as the night continues. So first we have Emme. She is a supermodel, producer, and founder of Emme Nation. We have our lovely Angela here, who is a journalist and a TWC co-founder. We have Stephanie, who is an anchor for Bloomberg TV. We have Leslie to my right, who is the founder of the Manhattan Cocktail Classic. And we have Miki, who is the owner of Slice. So welcome them all. Very excited to have you. So I'm going to kick off my first question to Emme, and I'm going to ask the ladies a series of questions, like a question or two each, to sort of, we could get to know them a little bit, and then I want to facilitate a little bit of a dialogue. So that's going to be the format. We're also going to open up the end of this to a Q&A session. So if you guys think of good questions while we're going, please remember them, and you'll have a chance to ask them at the end of this. So Emme, most of us know you. I certainly remember you as the first plus-size supermodel when I was a teenager. You are now a jack of all trades, running your own production company, starting a clothing line, and creating a TV show and community about a woman's mind, body, and spirit. What was it like making a transition from modeling to entering the business world? Who were the key mentors that helped you become a successful businesswoman, and what were the challenges and stereotypes that you encountered? So I know there's a few questions in there.
Thank you.
So you can pick which you choose to answer.
Thank you. It's a very good question. There's so many facets to this question, having to do with coming from beauty, going into business. Do you get credit for your brains? Not really. I had to find out very quickly that no matter what meeting I would go in, and I would have my hair all done, my makeup would all be done, because I'd either be hired as a spokesperson, transitioning just as an image that was for hire, going into more of the on-air work, going into satellite media tours, and then becoming a brand within America. I found that there were times that I had to say, would you like me to come back for another meeting? Because the gentlemen that were in the meetings just couldn't stop looking at my hair and my makeup. And it was very irritating. Because I was very passionate about the women that I was meeting. I was meeting women that were younger, that were middle-aged, a little older, and even right after college too. Women were asking for acceptance. And my background was in reporting, and I was a reporter to begin with, and I crossed the line really early on. I went to the side of social reform. And I saw and I listened, and I heard that women really wanted to have products that were not just put into the basement of stores, which, if you aren't curvy, above a size 12, it is absolutely disastrously hard to find clothing to put on your body if you want to go on a date, if you want to get married, if you want to go to a funeral, if you want to go to a bar mitzvah, a confirmation, or any kind of celebration, and then throw in there if you're petite. It is absolutely difficult to try and find anything. So I was listening, and whether you're packaged larger or packaged smaller. So I just started saying, I need to find a way for me to become a businesswoman and encapsulate the passion that I have, and take the nuggets that other women have been communicating to me on all the tours. I went around the world a few times with the People, Most Beautiful People issue twice that was nominated, when everybody started saying, oh, well, there's curvy out there beauty, and I said, well, hello. And I put on my reporter hat, and I said, what is it that I start with? So I started off with a clothing line, and Kelwood was one of the best manufacturers out there. They took on my brand, and I learned a lot. And so they were one of my major role models in how to produce in a very large way with many different stores. I also went to QVC, I went to JCPenney. I had a few different clothing lines along the way, learning each step as to how to take on different meetings and how to tone down the makeup, tone down the spokespersonship thing, and really bring in your briefcase. and keep it short and succinct and to the point, and you don't have to perform. You just need to get the numbers there, get the research done, and out the door you go. It's been an interesting journey. It continues to, when I just left government yesterday on very high-level discussions on having factory rebuilds and bringing manufacturing in the United States, creating jobs for single women, creating jobs for disadvantaged youths, creating jobs for our vets, and having those kinds of discussions. At this other level, I'm yet in another transition, and I've got to corset myself even more. So my emails are not only like one line now, they used to be 5, 6 lines, and I've been trained, get rid of all that nice stuff, just get to the point. So you have to stay open. If your heart calls you to do something different, and there I was, started out, as an athlete, you just have to stay open. You never know what might be knocking on your door, and just do not let fear or roadblocks get in your way.
Great,
Basic,
thank you.
with all that.
So I'm going to sort of build on, kind of ride on the coattails of that question a little bit, as kind of leaving a traditionally female beauty industry towards a more of entering the business world. I'm going to transition my question to Stephanie, who has been thriving in what is traditionally a very male-dominated field, finance. So, Stephanie, you have a very interesting career path to me as a woman who has successfully navigated a very male-dominated field. Both at Credit Suisse and Deutsche Bank, you thrived as a top salesperson, and then you oversaw relationships for some of Deutsche Bank's largest hedge fund clients, such as, as a managing director for global markets. It seems like you really carved an impressive path for yourself in banking. So I'm wondering, what was it like to navigate that field as a woman? What were the key relationships that helped you through that? And how much did you make men sort of your allies along the way, as well as the women who helped you out as well?
I sort of ended up, thank you for having me, I sort of ended up in banking almost by accident. I originally went to school to study engineering, and after I left engineering school, I was still an undergrad, and I studied abroad for a few years. And while I was abroad, I thought, God, I want to stay in Europe, but I didn't have any money. So I wrote to a bunch of banks, because I thought, oh, they have banks all over the world, and I could go work for a US bank in Europe. And Merrill Lynch gave me a job in Switzerland for the summer, and when I got there, the group blew up, so they said, well, there's no job here, but you can go to New York. And again, I really knew nothing about banking, but if you're really interested in traveling, and if you're ambitious, banking's an amazing industry. And I spent a summer at Merrill Lynch, and one day I had to make a delivery onto a trading floor. And if you've ever been on a trading floor, you either have a visceral, horrible response, or it's completely intoxicating, because it is physically like a massive football field, and it's sort of the ultimate in power games, right? And there, every day someone's winning, someone's losing. It is immediate risk reward, and for me, it was completely intoxicating. The fact that there were very few women, at the time I didn't notice because I was too stupid to notice because I was 21. But one of the big problems with that, and one of the reasons we don't see women in certain fields, is because there's a notion that you've got to see it to be it. So when you enter a situation and there are people who look like you and sound like you and smell like you, somewhere subconsciously you believe, I can do it because everyone else here can. It's why you see every Ivy League lacrosse player in New York has a great job at a bank. Because when they were 21 years old, somebody who they knew said, hey, you should come work at Goldman Sachs. And they walked onto that trading floor, and there were 30 guys who looked just like them. And one of the reasons we don't see women go into those fields and thrive in those fields is even once they get there, they can't find a mentor, they can't find a sponsor, because they're looking for a path to success. And my husband and I are in the same industry, and not to begrudge his success, but guess what? He walked up, he sat down, and he could say, well, I know what I'm going to do. The same thing these 40 guys next to me did. But for so many women, they look and they say, well, there's no women here with kids, or there's no women here that are married, or there's no women that are sexy, or that embrace their femininity and they rock up wearing refrigerators for clothes, or they behave like men, or they talk about football when they're not interested in it, or they take up golf. But the fact of the matter is, any really competitive industry, you got into it because you're so smart and hardworking, but somehow women feel like they have to abandon who they are to fit in. If you stay true to who you are, but you work your ass off, that's what's going to help you. And not to say that networking isn't massively important, because it is, but there's a balance between the two. Because if you focus all of your time on ladder and politics and how am I going to go there and how am I going to get to this event, all of that flies out the window if the work you need to be doing every day doesn't get done. But on the other side, what kills so many women in competitive industries is we don't think to ever ask for anything for ourselves. And what happens is we do an incredible job, but our heads are like this. And we're working and we're working, and we believe, I'm going to do such a good job, someone's going to notice me and pull me up. Well, this isn't school. There's no grades, it's not fair, and no one, and the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to be crying in the ladies' room when you say, I cannot believe somebody got this amazing stretch assignment to go work in Singapore for 2 years and I didn't get it. And then when when you're crying your face off and you're walking out the bathroom and someone's like, oh shit, now I gotta talk to this girl. What's the problem? And then the girl's like, well, I mean, I wanted to go to Singapore. That partner, that firm is gonna say, well, how the hell did I know you wanted to go to Singapore? You never told me. So there is a balance between the two. And the other thing that's great about working in finance is when you think about, oh, can I do it? Can I have kids? Here's one of the reasons you can do it, because it pays really well. So I'm not saying you remove the issues of what am I going to do when I have children, but there's something beautiful about the fact that when you're in your 20s and you're killing yourself in investment banking, you're also doing really well financially. So when the time comes and you want to have children, maybe you're going to stay in the business, but if you don't, you're not going to then, if you're married or have a partner, you're not going to then say, all right, well, I'm not going to work for a bank, now it's time when I'm going to work for you. Or if you don't have a partner, you're financially secure that you don't have to say, oh, well, like, I worked all this time and now I can't afford to have a baby on my own. Like, there's something really nice about having your own money, because at the end of the day, you're always working for someone. You're working for your spouse, you're working for your boss, and having control of your own money, even if you share your money with your spouse, is so massively empowering that I just recommend going into a field where there's not a lot of women, or that seems sort of brutal. Because guess what? Everything's a little bit brutal. You go work at a magazine, pretty brutal. You know what I mean? Like, now I work in television, totally brutal. So there's a notion that Wall Street is so hardcore, and it is, but this is New York City. Life here is hardcore. And so I think if you embrace things that seem uncomfortable or that seem scary, and with getting people to mentor you, this comes out the wrong way, but everyone innately is a user. And when you even talk about mentors, the reason it's sort of a broken model is because every time there's a networking event and an incredible woman stands up and speaks, you're going to walk away and say, oh my gosh, I loved everything you had to say. Can I send you an email and can I take you for a coffee? You do not have time to have a coffee with everyone in this room. But a mentor is a relationship. So there are men and women who want to help you, but they have no more love or time to give, so you need to offer something. And even if you're a massively junior person, you can offer your time, your tenacity, your enthusiasm, something, because guess what? Anybody who you want to be your mentor is probably someone massively successful, and they have no effing time to help somebody who they don't know. Like, you need to offer something too, and the notion that, well, I'm just going to wait for this fairy godmother to pick me up, or I'm going to go to a networking event, and I'm going to meet somebody, and they're going to find out that I'm from their hometown, and then I'm going to tell them that I am a champion bridge player, and we're going to have this connection, and they're going to get me appointed to a New York City Women's Initiative Council, and then my life's going to change. None of those things ever happen. Like, go to networking events for the cheese and the wine, but if you think your life is going to change, it's just not. It's going to change when you know what your action plan is, and when you go to someone senior or someone accomplished and you say, here's what I'd really like to do, and here's what you've done, I would love if you could help me, here's a roadmap to it. And go to someone when you're not broken. Because guess what? Everybody's got their own broken toys in their lives. Their sisters, their mothers, their kids, or whatever. When a stranger comes up to you with, I hate my boss and I hate my job and I want to do something else, they don't care. But if they meet someone who is enthusiastic and who's excited and who has possibility, and when that person thinks, great, you can do something for me, they will then take you in. And I think that is a major thing in banking, that it is not about men and women. And guess what? If you are a woman, you're a different flavor. You offer something different. No one ever forgets you because you're the only woman in the room. And there's a billion bad things about being a woman in banking, but just like anything else, there's a million bad things about life. There's things that, you know what I mean? Like, you can say all day long, my husband's a bore, I can't stand him. Well, guess what? If you're single, you can say, Jesus Christ, I want somebody to buy me dinner. Like, once you get your head around the fact that life is just really hard, you can embrace it, and I think you can be successful at whatever you're doing. So the whole, like, who do you find to mentor you? Somebody who is looking for a relationship who you can also serve too. So I don't necessarily think it's a man or a woman thing. And yes, things have changed so much, so it's so extraordinary and beautiful that there are so many women now, and there wasn't 15 years ago, who are committed to helping other women, that we have that benefit, but nobody is looking for little orphans to fix. And if you think they are in this big bad city of New York, time to go to NJ.
That was hilarious. I mean, you made some really great points. I think definitely part of our purpose of being here is to think about how we can become proactive in our own lives, about shaping our careers and making a very conscious effort. And that's certainly something that I've learned along the way, is it's not, especially in New York, relationships are very much two-way here. And I think part of growing up and part of maturing professionally is understanding that and learning how you can leverage your own skills to help another person who will help you in return. So, excellent points. So,
I don't have to go to New Jersey.
might be a little easier there. So I'm going to turn to Miki, who was actually you were a banker, is that correct?
Me too.
And Miki left and started a very successful business called Slice. And since becoming a young entrepreneur, she has become a role model for young people, most recently speaking at the UN Global Youth Summit. So I guess my first question for Miki will be, why did you get out of finance? Why, and what made you think that a restaurant was a brilliant idea that you could successfully do?
That's a crazy question. Yeah, so I worked at Deutsche Bank when I graduated from Cornell, played soccer. I was like a great athlete from Ivy League school of going to work in finance. So that's what I did. And within 9/11 happened actually just a month after I started my job. And I said to myself, okay, well, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I want to do something else with my life. And so I started looking around and seeing what I wanted to do, and the first thing I thought about was soccer. I played soccer for Cornell Division I, and then I said, okay, well, maybe I'm going to try out and fulfill my dream and play for the New York Magic. And so I went to try out for New York Magic and made the team, made the starting lineup, and then blew out my ACL first game of the season. Crazy. Yeah, so I went back to my finance job at Deutsche Bank, worked for a year, get the best health insurance possible. Went back out and tried out again the following year for the New York Magic again, made the team again, made the starting line again, and then tore my other ACL. Yeah. So I was like, okay, this is crazy, probably not right for me. And so then I started, asking myself, what's the next thing I want to do with my life? And I thought, movies. I spent my summers at Cornell working for the guys who produced Dumb and Dumber, Kingpin, great, smart movies in LA. And I sort of, dusted off my film resume and decided to go back to the film business and started off like picking up trash on the streets as a production assistant. And then sort of worked my way up very quickly, sort of finding the right people to talk to, and then became a producer within 4 months and started producing sort of big commercials like Victoria's Secret, working with Justin Timberlake, And then during this time, my stomach started hurting all the time. And New York City, going out of town, you go out and eat every single night. You live in these little box apartments, nobody cooks at home, nobody knows how to use a pan. And so, right? And so I sort of went out every night, and then every time I came home, my stomach would be hurting. And I just started, every night I would stay up at night, and then one day I'm just like, enough's enough, like what is going on? And so I went to Auntie Google, and figured out that I was lactose intolerant. I sort of kind of discovered that every time I ate dairy, I was getting bloating, and I was sort of, gassy and all that stuff. And I said, okay, well, this is really interesting. And so I kind of gave up dairy and just saw what happened and figured out that actually that was the case. And I told my dad and I had to go to medical school to figure that out. Then, I started asking myself, okay, well, where are all the foods I started giving up? And my favorite food that I gave up was pizza, And I was like, wow, pizza, like I missed it so much. And I kind of started digging into the pizza industry and figured out that it was a $32 billion industry, and Americans eat 100 acres of pizza every single day. And
that's another Italian connection.
Yeah. And it accounts for 10% of American food service sales. It's sort of a huge industry, and it's sort of the highest margin business in the food sector. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting. So 1 in 5 Americans are lactose intolerant, 20% of the population. The food revolution was sort of just beginning. Walmart was embracing organic and all natural ingredients, more whole foods, and they're just popping up in every major city. And so there's this big movement towards food, and yet the pizza industry wasn't responding. They were Domino's stuffing a crust more cheese. Pizza was adding more pepperoni, and just all this. There was this competitive white space. There was this opportunity. And I said to myself, this is very interesting. I didn't know anything about the food business. I didn't know anything about starting a business. I didn't know anything about raising money. So I just, did the next best thing, which New York City is full of the smartest people. It's the belly button of the world. So I basically started calling all of my smartest friends, and I said, look, I have this idea, healthy pizza concept. We can use, local farms, use organic, local, ingredients, natural. Everything is, we're gonna have gluten-free, vegan options. Just, I had this idea, but I didn't know where to begin. And so I created sort of a round table, sort of brainstorming session where I created sort of an event where all my friends who were all in different sectors came together and sat in a room and sort of spent a whole night coming up with the whole concept. I had my advertising friend, my branding friends, my marketing friends, my interior design friends, my architecture friends, my finance friends. All these friends I've collected over the few years come into one room, and it was interesting because they all had different point of views, which they were able to kind of give me, again, different point of views and how to launch my business. So we came up with the name, came up with the concept, came up with literally every granular detail of, wow, of the business. The next step was, okay, well, now what? Okay, I have an idea, but now I have to raise money. And I've never raised money my entire life. I worked in investment banking and I worked, film business, but I've never raised money. And I'm sure that's one of those things that it's one of the hardest things to do. So again, I started kind of trying to do these pitches, I dusted off my banking suit and kind of went to do one-on-one meetings. I was always nervous, doing one-on-one things. And so I realized, okay, there's a way to approach raising money for me, that worked for me. And it was, you have to be the most authentic version of yourself in order for someone to really believe in you. And I felt like when I was one-on-one with somebody, I was like nervous, just like, and I wasn't me. And so, I asked myself, what am I most me? And, I'm half Japanese, half Indian. I grew up, with an identical twin sister and third sister, a very close family. We used to host, parties all the time at family's house. I was the most comfortable, having dinner parties and having people over and sort of just getting to know people and connecting and not just like sitting across from someone. And so I started hosting dinner parties and fundraising dinner parties where I would have a friend who's a chef I met playing soccer come in and prepare meals. I had one of my British friends with a fancy British accent present the idea for me because I was nervous. And so, he's like, this is brilliant idea. So I was kind of like, wow, British guys. I kind of curated these events, these dinner parties when you know, where I was most myself. I was able to really like be the cheerleader, which is what I do best, and not necessarily be the person like, you know, trying to ask for money, which is not my strongest suit. And so, you know, and that's how, you know, these events went, you know, beautifully, like, you know, people started connecting with each other. I was just watching, you know, connections happen. It was magical. And that's how I raised the money. People were like, you know, when you have a whole group of people nodding their heads at one time, it's sort of like groupthink, right? You know, and if all of a sudden it's kind of like when you're trying to raise money and it's like that first person who decides to invest in something that all of a sudden everybody follows. But if you're looking around, everyone's like, this is really good. Oh, we're having a great time. This is beautifully done. All of a sudden everyone's like, okay, sure. So slowly people started to invest. And, you know, it took me a long time. It took me 6 months to figure that out. Like I was, you know, I bombed so many different meetings, like no idea what I was doing. And then this is when I realized that my most, you know, comfortable self came out, and as a result, I was able to really, you know, put forth my best work, and then it came back. So I think.
Did you make pizza at your fundraising?
Oh yeah, I made. So one of my friends, my very first friend in New York, was a soccer player. I met in Central Park, and I invited him, you know, as you know, to prepare the pizza, but also present his, you know, restaurant. He was opening a restaurant as well, so it's sort of like a mutually beneficial thing. And you should always create mutually beneficial experiences for people, because then it'll be more interesting for them to come. So when you create a dinner party for investors or people who are interested in coming to this party, it benefits them too, because they're having a free meal, they're coming to have a free experience, they're going to have a, you know, party in a beautiful venue. All of a sudden, it's like everyone's engaged with each other. Okay, so they win too by coming to these things, and so all of a sudden, it's like you start winning fine in that way. So, I mean, it wasn't rocket science for me, but it was what worked for me. So then, after I raised the money, I was like, okay, now what? You know, so I had the money, and then it was about finding the space, finding the right team, and all that. It took a long time for me to figure out who the right partner should be for me, who the right manager should be for my business. Like, I didn't know anything about hiring. I thought, oh, that guy's skinny jeans looks really good. You know, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy is a total hipster. He doesn't want to work at all. You know? So, you know, and so it's kind of like you sort of figure that out, and it's iterative. Like everything is an iteration. I'm working on a new business right now with my best friend over there, and you know, and it's all iterative, and it's exciting because it's like you celebrate each part where you're like, okay, well, this happened, and I know it can be better, but at least I put it out to the world and people are responding. Okay, now the next step, and now the next step, and you know, and you just keep going. So now I have a restaurant in the West Village. It's, you know, it's a beautiful little farm-to-table eatery, and I'm opening one in Las Vegas right now with the CEO of Zappos.com, Tony Shea.
Awesome.